Sup world, sup Zion, it's Prince Easy coming at you again once more. And as usual, we're gonna update each other upon the geopolitical whatever that is unfolding before our eyes. And of course, we're gonna try to discern the trajectory, right, of the world, basically, right? Because it seems people see themselves as part of I don't know, some sort of wild ride or something, right? Rightfully so. So, before we get into that, I want to issue a disclaimer for the material that's going to be shown here in this here video under the fair use, right? For education and entertainment and observation and criticism, right? So, let's get to it. Right? Right. Look at them. So proud. They took pictures and everything, right? I'm glad that database is out there keeping track of all of these individuals. So, of course, you know what it is. We're going to get into the statements that have been coming out. One EU diplomat speaking on condition of anonymity described a possible security arrangement. Under such a deal, Europe would receive stronger guarantees from the Trump administration on continued support for Ukraine in exchange for an expanded U.S. role in Greenland. Right? We did not see this coming. Right? We did not see this coming. Right? I had a conversation about this. This scenario would be a bitter pill for Europe, but it could be easier to swallow than the alternative, annoying Trump, which may retaliate by imposing sanctions, pulling out of peace negotiations, or by throwing his weight behind Putin in negotiations with Ukraine. Okay. It is now up to Russia to show its interest in peace. It is interested in peace after Kyiv and its allies agreed on a peace plan and the security guarantees that would take effect following a ceasefire. The head of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, said, I don't need to say a lot about supposed negotiations, right? She said the security guarantees would rely first on Ukraine armed forces, which she said were well trained and better experienced. It would be the task of the Europeans to make such a Ukrainian army is also well equipped. This is what they are saying. Here it is very good that the Americans are involved, especially in the verification and the monitoring, but also with a backstop, right? It's good. So we're going to take a pause from that and we're going to get back to that madness, right? So pertaining to this video, I was actually about to make a video pertaining to this subject, right? I think we have covered extensively them pointing it out that you see Africans are helping Putin. Well, that is like a, I don't know, double-edged sword or something, right? It is a propaganda against the Africans, and of course it is also for the diasporas, right? And this is quite familiar, right, from the little history I know about Americano, right? But again, everything is cyclical in this realm that we're living, right? Nothing new under the sun and all, right? So to better tackle this whole ordeal, right, what you said in the video is actually accurate and true, right? That instinct right, about what is gonna probably unfold. It is true, and only thing I could say is focus on World War II, right? Because again, they need to make them feel ownership, right? This is why they switched, as if ancestry changes when you change location, right? Like, it's crazy work. But again, look at World War II and what happened there, the type of propaganda that was floating around, right? I am sure the tensions were just like this, right? And indeed, some individuals participated, and it was tragic because they were good, right? They were good, right? But this is all about you, right? Especially you, not about the Africans, right? Especially you, right? That whole shaving thing, again, to push you further and further into taking ownership, right, of Babylon, basically, right? And this is all to entice you to fight for them, right? Just like, remember the text messages about you need to report at this particular time in this particular location, your job will be assigned to you in this farm, picking this and this. You remember that? Yes. Okay, that was a real thing. And of course, it has taken different shapes, right? They are not talking about it, but again, that's what it is, right? So they need to keep the rhetoric of you being insolent, right? So as you, I don't know, reverse psychology to try to prove that you are indeed patriotic, right? So all of these ADOS and FBAs, right? Those malicious type, right? Against the Africans especially, right? Because again, they're African, but with an American attitude, right? And sorry to tell you this, but it is not compatible with Africa anywhere, right? That type of attitude is not compatible, right? This is all circling back to what I said a long time ago, right? That I believe that there are some people who have fought so long that they have become their enemy, right? They have become the thing that they were trying to fight. And that's what we see has happened, unfortunately, right? So, of course, right? Let's say this, right? Since the first contact, right? The first peoples to ever make contact with us, right? I don't know if it was the Indians or the Arabs, or right, especially at the center of the continent, right? The Congo area, the Eastern Africa area, right? The north of Africa has always been diverse, right? It has been like a center for business and power for a really, really long time. Why? Because it is strategic. It is strategic, right? So again, our history is complicated and dark, right? But the conversation that needs to be had is how again do we regain our dignity, right? Because we are not talking about history, right? We're not talking about history when we read about these things, right? Young girls, young boys being abused. No, these are current events, right? So we need to wipe off them tears and deal with what we have going on right now before our children become us, reading from the books about our inability, or rather at this particular point, our will to put an end to whatever history is now. Right? What has happened has happened. Do not weep for the dead. It doesn't serve you, nor it doesn't help them in any way. You understand? So we are back to the nonsense. We are working very hard for peace in Ukraine. Pino said. Now, peace in Ukraine depends on one single person. That person is, as you know very well, President Putin. So obviously, at some point there'll have to be talks also with. I don't know if they don't know English. I let me be naive and just assume like that, right? So what? This whole, even the last slides that we look at pertaining to this, it carries that same mindset, right? The mindset which basically is dictative, right? Dictative, right? We and our partners and all so-called allies have come up with a plan, and now it is up to Putin if he wants peace, and we shall see a ceasefire and this and that. It's like they are pretending to be deaf to what the other side is saying. The other side said no ceasefire, no troops. And these are the things that you are bringing right now to the table. So you want to die, it's fine, right? It's fine, right? The World War III will do your population great, right? You're already talking about, oh, we're about to be replaced, our reproduction numbers are low, and now you're talking about World War III as if, no, it will serve you great. Pino added that the EU is also concerned because it is also our security that is at stake, because Ukraine is, and as we see it, right, part of Europe, right, a group, right, as we see it, right, again, that I don't know, gang mentality, right? So they also see Russia as not. Why? Because they are not, I don't know, listening to Brussels or something. Trump on Friday warned the U.S. Army may have to choose between seizing Greenland or keeping NATO intact, marking the latest escalation of his long-running campaign to grab the giant Arctic island. It's not an island, but hey, controlling Greenland is what I feel is psychologically needed. Feelings. Brussels, Germany, and the Netherlands are at odds with France in seeking to ensure Kyiv will be able to buy US weapons using the EU €90 billion loan on Ukraine. In further point of controversy, the German government, while rejecting the European preference sought by France, still suggested giving preferential treatment to firms from countries that provided the most financial support to Ukraine. Those who play the advantage, well, you know, this is quite familiar, right? For those people who are regulars here, we are back to this, right? Them arguing about how they're gonna spend the money, right? At the first time, I remember they were arguing the same arguments about the seized Russian funds, the same conversations. This is like a terrible movie playing over and over, right? Every year. If it doesn't have Donald Trump, the thing would have been a total disaster, and he knows it, and Europe leaders know, and everybody knows it. The US president said, right? Referring to himself in third person. Hmm? Hmm? Still talking about ceasefire, right? He's giving this, again, putting Russia on a corner. And they don't understand, they don't grasp how much trouble they're in. I don't think so, right? And most importantly, they are people, not upper hand. We not have the combination at the moment. Russia is confident it can achieve its goals by military means. Ukraine is confident it can hold out. Trump, paradoxical as it may sound, is running between Putin and Zelensky, trying to create negative and positive motivation for them, but it still does not work. Why? Because each side is compensating resources. As I said, Russia is China. For us, it is Europe. This is why, as long as Europe and Ukraine stand together, Trump cannot break them. Right? This is, of course, by the framing and opinion of a Ukrainian. What was supposed to be a quick operation in Ukraine has turned into a grinding war of attrition. Right? Just, I don't know, forget about the last time the Russians were in Kyiv. Just, that didn't happen, that didn't happen. That was just a psyop, just Russians taking pictures and stuff in Kyiv, and I wonder how long that took. But hey, let's forget about that, right? The duration of the conflict has now surpassed 1,418 days. The Soviets spent fighting back the Nazi onslaught, ultimately pushing the Germans from Moscow all the way to Berlin. Right? So again, they are drawing comparisons, right? That if they could not handle a single nation, they could not push back the Ukrainian army, how can they push off the whole of us, right? This is what that meant to imply. Okay? So, switching up, right? We do that here often. So, my guy here, just like Kanye, he's also the one that brought up the flat earth, right? Isn't that it? So let's see, right? I love this map, right? So let's see. So here we have Russia, we have Alaska, we have North America, we have we have Mexico, and so on and so forth. So what to expect if they're trying to create a buffer zone, right? Again, they keep insisting it's for security reasons and this and that, right? So here, Greenland, right? What follows? Canada, that's what follows, right? Talking about breaking the camel's back. Mexico, of course, it has been said they're going to launch attacks on Mexico. Excuse drug cartel, right? Honduras, these are all tiny things, right? We have Venezuela, right? We have Guyana, right? We all know about what happened in Guyana, right? Colombia also. Finna get it. That's just... But why do they do this? They do this to discredit, right? Just like when Obama came out here and said, we are not going to have no meetings about no flat earthers, right? This and that, right? They're trying to demoralize and basically divert the conversation, right? And basically shun the people who can be easily, I don't know, tackled in an argument, right? These people say the earth is flat. These people say the earth is a globe spinning in space, rotating around the sun, right? These are the two schools. So you're telling me we cannot come to a settlement? Or there's a middleman who does not want that settlement, so they create strife. Hence this guy, right? He brought up flat earth and he wrote the whole thing and he was ridiculed, and then he backslid, and then he came out with this. Right now, this is the way to defeat this synagogue of Satan, right? Take away their mask. That's what you do. Take away their mask. Undress them, in a sense, right? Undress them. And all of their claims, I don't know, God gave us this land 3,000 years ago and this and that, all of that nonsense falls apart. And they'll be exposed for the criminals and the demon worshippers they are. Right? But till then, we're gonna have these up and down, right? And just to show you how they are connected, so to speak, right? And to show you the consequences of if you go against them. So, sister, talk the truth, right? Right. This whole unholy matrimony here, right? And what it is doing to the memory industry that we had a conversation about, right? And how the prices and what we talked about yesterday, right? That they might, right? The processors might not be so strong, right? But it's not about NVIDIA. This is about TSMC in Taiwan, right? NVIDIA, for you who don't know, does not make chips. It does not fabricate chips. It designs, and it takes these designs to a fabricator like TSMC to produce, say, chips, okay? And TSMC is learned or has machines in there from another company, called ASML or something. And it is based in Europe, who has apparently monopoly, right? We had to talk about Europeans and monopoly here, right? They say China has a monopoly on, right? They were talking about overproduction, was it? So this is just a chain. You have to follow the chain realistically, right? Not by what they tell you, right? So what it seems like is they're preparing for something, and you should be concerned with that, not about what is happening now. 11 days ago, right? They made a pledge. Please. Right, on the latest, right? These are good signals, right? These are good signals. What is unfolding in Venezuela? Ironic, ain't it? What I'm waiting for about this whole scandal here is the training manual, brothers and sisters, right? Because I see clearly signs of indoctrination, a very deep indoctrination, right? These people have conviction. You understand? They have this conviction, and I do believe that this conviction is trained. They are trained. So that manual is gonna hit. It's gonna hit, right? When they break the code, because I do believe they have a code, right? When you look at that whole situation, when that guy, Pew Pew, we're gonna have an update on that guy, right? That woman, and of course the subsequent events that followed after, right? Something else that people don't talk about, right? That they actually refused an individual to offer assistance, right? I don't know if there was much he could do, but assistance is assistance, right? We have video of his agents basically saying, no, we have our own manual, okay? Manual, right? There's no discernment here. There's just indoctrination and them carrying out said indoctrination, right? And it's not gonna be white-centric, right? It's not gonna be white-centric. It's not, okay? I'm gonna wait for that, because that will give a clear picture, right, of who told them to do what and how, most importantly. Yeah, I don't know if FIFA is catching this or something. Now they have troops in Greenland. Okay. Stammer, the person who paid for the bombs and signed off on the weapons to be sold, is on the peace board. This has to be some kind of joke. Again, here they are trying to control the narrative, right? I'm still waiting on that manual. It exists. I know it does. Right? Call it a educated guess, and trust me, you're gonna be horrified. Of course, right? CES 2026, it shows you, like, these people have a cult mentality, right? They have a cult mentality. They are walking towards an end that they do not really understand, right? They are walking towards an end they do not really understand, and they are not really seeing what is obviously in front of them, right? So they have these ridiculous, even a toaster with AI, a coffee maker with AI, a fridge with AI. It's a cult mentality. It's not the newest craze and what. No, we have had crazes, brothers and sisters, right? We have had crazes over many over the years, many. But this one in particular is extremely organized, right? It's a conspiracy. This is what I'm saying. It's a conspiracy, right? And you have to look forward. Where does this conspiracy lead to, right? What is the crime they're trying to disguise, right? We are seeing the writing on the wall: Palantir, Nvidia, this and that, this and that, this and that, all of these things coming together. Right? The pieces are right there, right? The pieces are right there. And here we are in these particular videos, we try to put those pieces together, right? So as we can see clearly what is happening, right? Yeah. Do not take no chance. Okay. Yeah. This is what we call the writing on the wall. Right? Oh. the narrative still continues, right? They have lowered protesters into kill zones, right? So the Iranian regime is meticulous, you know. It runs operation to put, I don't know, pincer movements to put the victims and basically get rid of them, right? And they vow revenge. This is the sun, you know. They're telling you, right? So how is NVIDIA gonna be used to kill you, right? And most people say, oh, even if the AI bubble busts, right, they can still offer cloud computing as a service. That is their backstop. But again, what is the writing on the wall? What is the current status? They're gonna weaponize AI in one way or the other. Not for battlefields, but for the masses. Okay? One hand, farming equipment, the other hand, a sword. That's how we're living now. It's good, right? This legal action, now you have to be smart, right? Beat them to the punch. Beat them to the punch, right? These ministers want to be bold and take it to court, make it extremely futile for them to do so. And there are ways, and it takes simply organization, not even forming a new political party. And no, it just takes organization. Because it is known that what they're doing is illegal and oppressive. So again, they're either going to be exposed as fraudulent, or they're going to be exposed as the gang Gestapo they are, right? When everything gets out of control, what do? They're praising, right? They're giving themselves credit, right? That Elon Musk's Starlink is now a piece of, I don't know, piece of the revolutionary spirit that is going through the world, you know. This is what they feel like. I know he's thorough, right? He's always thorough, right? They're not split on who is gonna know about supplying Ukraine, no, but they're worried about who is gonna get that money, right? The US is sitting there, as Trump said, without him, there won't be nothing going on. No backstop, no negotiation, no Europe, no NATO. Right? You called him daddy and all. What does that mean? Right? You need your father. So America wants the biggest portion, and that would leave like nothing. But again, they have to throw jabs in the dark, right? The Germans talking about the ones that have contributed the most, right? Do people actually know who have contributed the most? Some have said it's Germany. So they want a bigger piece. This is the real world, brothers and sisters. Right? What we are seeing is a real world. What people have been living over the years is fiction. Look at these two. Right? They have troops on the ground. Now they're coming out here and giving, statements and stuff. So, about the update, this is what they're saying, right? That's why I say, why are there protections? Because they did exactly what they were supposed to do, right? And if they were to falter and throw this guy under the bus, the whole thing would crumble on itself. You understand? The whole thing would collapse on itself. Why? Because the trust will be lost. Then there will be caution, right? But as long as these mercenaries are quiet, right, and keep the code and do exactly what they are told, then they'll be protected. And here they are protecting the guy. I don't know where he got the internal bleeding, but this is what they say. I'm just here to give you ABC, right? There was a car ramming. Of course, the smell of phase 2, right? Just about time to go to war, right? You have the Europeans talking about the peace councils and stuff, and now we have Gaza governance body. This is what is unfolding. This is also what is unfolding. We had a conversation about this, I don't know, yesterday or the day before that, and not even the day particularly, but the video. They call it Hindu majoritarianism. Wow, that's as hate spirals in India, Hindu extremists turn to Christian targets. Anti-Muslim violence has soared for more than a decade under Indian PM. Are you seeing what I'm seeing? The writing on the wall. Right? Yes, I know it's a lot. But again, right? If this is not your first time, we're gonna lose you. You need to go back, I don't know, 10 videos to even catch up. Right. So, yeah, this is what is happening, as you can see. Fighting everywhere. Fighting everywhere. So, buckle up, and fight back. That's the only way to keep the beast at bay, or else it will consume you.
generations over 5,000 years. And shocker, he finds a 100% correlation between free the libido, Woodstock sexual insanity, and the death of civilizations. And he says once a civilization adopts total sexual freedom, that's actually the phrase he uses, you have 3 generations.
Again, I want to insist, linguistic. You have to know linguistic science. Right? I know I'm not the most well-spoken person, but I make an effort to understand what a person is saying. I make an effort to listen, to actually listen and actually ponder about what they're actually saying. Is that what does sexual freedom mean? That there was once a state in which there was no sexual freedom, okay? Or in other words, they would say deviant behavior, right? Like I said again many times, there's nothing wrong with sex, okay? Sex is fine, it's good. It's how most of us got here. All of us got here. But when we are talking about deviation and sexual freedom, right? This is just a cover, right? Because in reality, they are anti what? The believers, they know it is anti-God. Their whole movement is anti-God. They are actively and intentionally going against what God desired for us, right? Which is everything that is good. But again, in this world that the bad is becoming good and the good is becoming bad, it's confusion, right? So again, I think I did make a exclusive video pertaining to this subject, right? And I made my own observations, right? And I'm glad to see that, of course, there are some others that have come up with the same conclusion.
Before your civilization is taken over by another society with greater social energy. Child sacrifice is always the foundation of a teetering empire. You can't get the right to life right, you won't get any other rights.
Again, that is an oversimplification. Okay, your circumstances and their circumstance quite different, right? They didn't have no population crisis, right? These people that you're talking about, right? Child sacrifice did not make their population to dwindle. Okay, it had indeed long-term consequences, but it's much deeper, right? Others were just wiped out by diseases. Others just moved, and we just come to conclusion, hey, they fell and all of these things, right? That's just the point I needed to make, right? There were spiritual reasons behind the things that they were doing, right? Just like now, right? When we're talking about pizzas and stuff.
Right. And those who murder the unborn cannot be trusted to govern the born, and those who murder the unborn will one day murder you too, the longer that you tolerate the sacrament of Satan.
You just put that in there, huh? Does he even know what Satan is? But anyway, I'm gonna put a pin on it right there, and we're gonna hear from each other when we hear from each other. Prince Easy signing out. Love you. Bye.